Are you crazy to want to buy a house in the winter? Shouldn't you just wait until springtime when there's more housing inventory on the market? Well, in this video, we're going to talk about why it's not so crazy to just be sitting inside by the fire, sipping on your hot chocolate, but instead, maybe you should be out there house hunting. Let's go. Hey guys, welcome back. It's Eric Sztanyo from Keller Williams Realty and TeamStanyo.com, where we are helping you find your home and strengthen your family. And Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We're in that time of year where it's pitch black, dark outside by 5 o'clock. And I want to talk about this question of when is the worst time of the year to buy a house? A lot of people might think that it is the winter time. They don't want to buy a house in the winter time, but there's a few reasons why that's not the case. We're going to talk about that in this video. So 3 things we want to talk about, especially in the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky local market, and that is housing inventory, number 1. Number 2, the amount of buyer competition that's out there in the wintertime. And number 3, the median sales price by month. Let's dig into all 3. All right, let's talk about housing inventory first and the amount of houses that are out there on the market and the amount of houses that are actually sold. I want to show you guys this chart taken from the Cincinnati MLS, covering the 4 major counties around the greater metro Cincinnati area. And what this chart is showing is the amount of units that have sold by month for the last 2 years. Now here in Cincinnati, we're a little bit more in the Midwest, and the real estate calendar really kind of goes by the weather. And you can see there are dips and there are peaks here in this chart. And the dips are always going to be in January and February. Those are your lowest selling months for houses in the market. 2020 was a little bit of a weird year for a lot of reasons, but in 2021 was a little bit more normalized. But what you can see here by this dotted green line is that on average over the last 2 years, there's about 1,758 homes sold every month. When you get into January, in 2020, that number was 1,047, and then up to 1,237 in February. And this year of 2021, that number was 1,200 and 1,220 units sold in February of 2021. Compare that to the peak months, right? Which are maybe June in 2021, where we sold 2,280 units, 2,200 in August. Same thing back in 2020. The top month was actually July of 2,256, right around that 2,200. So if you do the math here, you're roughly down 30% of the average amount of units sold for the year in those colder months of January and February. And likewise, you're going to be up about 30% more in sales on average in those peak months of May, June, and July. So what does that mean? Well, number 1, obviously it means you can still buy or sell a house in the colder months, in December, January, February. There's going to be less houses sold, but you can still get out there and buy a house, clearly. There's just going to be less amount of houses on the market from sellers, and it's obvious why. The houses don't show as well. It gets dark like immediately after the sun comes up is what it feels like. But no, it gets dark probably around 5 o'clock, 5:30, and so you don't have all those lovely flowers and greenery around the house, making the house look beautiful on the outside. So a lot of sellers tend to pull back. Plus it's the holidays, right? People are like, I don't want to mess with it. We'll deal with it after the holidays. So there's less inventory out there to choose from. But what does that mean for you as a buyer? Well, that brings us to point number 2, which is buyer competition. Because while there is less inventory on the market, there's less sellers wanting to sell in the winter months, there's also less buyers out there. And so you're not having to fight as many people all competing over the same amount of low inventory. In the last few years, we've known there's been historic low inventory. So with buyer competition being down a little bit, that means that could be a very good thing for you. So when there's buyer competition that's a little bit lower, that's good. That means there's not as many of you fighting over the same houses. Whereas in the spring and summer months, all the buyers come out, especially the families. They're trying to maybe sell or buy a house while school is out for the year. And so that's going to be driving prices a little bit up. So you might be able to get a little bit of a discount in those winter months of January and February. So if you're willing to put on the cold winter coat and get out there and look at houses in the dark, you might be able to get a deal. That brings me to the 3rd thing I want to talk to you guys about, which is the median sales price per month. I want to show you guys this article from fitsmallbusiness.com, and they're kind of saying the same thing here, that the best months to buy a home might actually be January and February. You think about it the opposite. You think those are the worst months to buy because there's not a lot of inventory out there. But if you're only thinking about pricing of the home, the winter months might be a really good fit. From this article here, it says January and February are typically the least expensive time to purchase a home. You have the perfect storm where the seller is eager to negotiate and the pool of buyers is small. I find that the buying process through this period of time also goes smoother and faster, where many agents, lenders, and inspectors are eager to get the holidays behind them and get back to work. So might be cheaper, might even be easier. And so you might want to consider these winter months. I want to scroll down here in this chart where it talks about and shows the actual median sales price at closing by month. This is from 19 to 20, so the data is a little bit old here. But if you look here at January and February, January is actually the cheapest month at $266,200 versus August, September at $310, $311. That's a huge swing. So why is that? Well, it's kind of the one time a year where you might find houses that were listed in November, December. They didn't get scooped up right away, so maybe they're out there now 30, 60, 90 days, and you've got a seller who's like, man, I thought for sure our house was gonna sell fast. They just wanna get it sold. There's less buyers, they're getting less showings. That can be a peak opportunity for you to strike as a buyer. If you see something that's been out there for more than 30 days, again, especially in this market, in those cold winter months when they're not getting a lot of activity on their house, might be a really good time to buy. So just to further that point here from the article, I want to read this one paragraph about the time of year. The perceived slower months, such as Thanksgiving and Christmas, can also be a great time for a buyer to purchase a home. This is because a seller who is willing to show their home during this holiday time, potentially disrupting their celebrations, is eager to sell and negotiate. They might also be more willing to take a lower offer seriously, as a buyer who is willing to brave the weather elements like rain and snow is committed to purchasing a home. So that's exactly what we just said, right? When you're buying out in the colder winter months, usually you're more serious, but you can find these sellers potentially who are a little bit more motivated. You can maybe put in an offer that's a little bit lower and get a deal at this time of year. So when is the worst time of year to buy? Probably not the winter months if you're just looking at price. If you're trying to get a deal, then some of those more active months of May, June, July, those might actually be the worst time of year to purchase, because there's more buyers out there and they're all pushing up the prices higher on the houses that are out there on the market. You might have more to choose from. You might enjoy shopping for houses in the sunshine a little bit more in the warmer weather, but you might also be paying a little bit more. One last thing to consider here, guys, before we cut out of this video, is that the Fed has just announced that they are planning to raise interest rates in 2022, probably multiple times. So you may want to consider even more these next few months here before the Federal Reserve raises interest rates and your purchasing power gets devalued a little bit as those interest rates climb in 2022. All right, so those are some tips and at least giving you a feel for what is the housing market like in the Cincinnati area in these different months. What are the prices like? Ultimately, when is the best time to buy or sell a house? Depends on you. Depends on your situation. You might not have the opportunity to buy in the winter months. You might be being relocated. Maybe your job is starting in April, May, June. You can't help it. Maybe you have to move the kids in those summer months and you can't help it. That's fine. Ultimately, we believe that your home is where your family grows strong together. And when it is the best or worst time to buy, it's hard to say. It might just depend on your specific situation. But I wanted to give some information here and maybe do a little myth busting when it comes to the fact, can I buy a house in the winter or not? The answer is definitely yes. You might even be able to get a better deal because there's not a lot of other buyer competition out there. So even though there's not a ton of housing inventory, if you find the right house for your family, it might be a great time to jump on it. All right, guys, I hope you've had a Merry Christmas and heading into 2022. I hope you have a wonderful new year. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm going to be doing some more talking about what might be happening in 2022 in the year to come, maybe some predictions about the real estate market, both nationally and here locally in Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky. So stay tuned for those videos. Thank you so much for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.